reality in our criminal justice system. It is also an important step in reorienting our criminal justice system so that it is both fairer and more effective while ensuring public safety. This bill accomplishes these important objectives by advancing a series of coordinated sentencing measures and policies in three broad areas, which I will take up afterwards. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Yes, unfortunately, the honourable member can, however, continue his speech after question period, and he'll have 18 minutes and 35 seconds to do so. Statements by members, déclaration de députés. The honourable member for Windsor-Tecumseh.
Madam Speaker, 40 years ago today at midnight, the communist dictatorship in Poland declared martial law. Tanks and soldiers filled the streets. Communications were cut to the outside world. Minutes after midnight, armed secret police arrived at our family's door in Poland and arrested my father. Like thousands of members of Solidarność, the first free and independent trade union in the Soviet bloc, he was imprisoned without trial. Families were left wondering for weeks whether they were alive or dead. After the crackdown, Canada opened its doors to over 6,000 Polish immigrants and political refugees like my family, who shared their talents and energy to build communities across Canada while never forgetting the struggle in their homeland. This evening, on the 40th anniversary of the imposition of martial law, Polish Canadians across Canada will light a candle in their window, representing the light of freedom, to show solidarity with those who fought for democracy then, and solidarity with those around the world fighting for freedom, democracy, and human rights today.
The honourable member for Calgary-Shepherd.
40 years ago, Polish communist leaders imposed martial law across Poland to crack down on the growing democratic trade union movement known as Solidarność. Military units would occupy cities, labor unionists were jailed until 1986, and their families of Solidarity members would be persecuted and expelled. My father was a member of Solidarność. A shipyard worker at the Lenin shipyards, he would leave Poland in 1983 during martial law. That's how my family was eventually allowed to come to Canada in 1985. Canadians responded to this solidarity wave. The Roman Catholic Diocese in Vancouver created the Polish Emergency Fund and a refugee fund. Hundreds of Polish sailors trawling the waters off the West Coast would be welcomed by Canadians and allowed to stay. Canadians from coast to coast welcomed Poles in their homes, raised funds for them, and marched in the streets in solidarity. On this historic 40th anniversary, let's celebrate the indomitable will of freedom shown by Solidarity members and recognize the dehumanizing cruelty of Soviet communism.
Hear, hear. The honourable member for Labrador.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to acknowledge those Labradorians that recently received a Labradorian of Distinction Award. The award was created in commemoration of Canada's 150th celebrations, and it recognizes individuals who have contributed to social, cultural, environmental, and economic development of Labrador society. It has been through their achievements, their advocacy, and contributions that Labrador continues to proudly chart its own path. This year's winners now join 160 past winners who have instilled themselves in the fabric of Labrador's history and its people. Congratulations to Toby Obed, Todd Kent, Claude Rumbold, Mabel Russell, Craig Porter, Lucy Pike, Mark Newey, and my mother, Barbara Rumbold, on being instilled in this award this year. And also to the following recipients posthumously, William Grayson Cowley and Barbara Wood. Their legacy, Mr. Speaker, will live on in this award and the amazing impact they have had in Newfoundland and Labrador and in Canada.
The honourable member for Repentigny. Christmas is a time of rejoicing for many. But for others, Mr. Speaker, it's a time of anguish, concern, and even distress. It's often said that the face of poverty is changing. Well, Colette Thibault, who's led the organization Faim à la Faim, or End Hunger, for over 25 years, could tell you something about that. Her organization plays a crucial role in our community by meeting the basic food needs of families. This is no small task, because in Lanaudière, we've seen a 60% increase in requests for food assistance in the last year. And if that wasn't enough, the cost of food is expected to increase by another 5 to 7% in 2022. When food is available but too expensive to buy, many people are put in a very difficult situation. It doesn't take much for someone to fall into debt. And it can be hard to get out of that spiral. It's for all these reasons that today I would like to highlight the vital contribution of the organization Faim à Faim in our region. To Colette and her team of wonderful volunteers, thank you for making sure that no one goes hungry, because no one should go hungry. The Honourable Member for Orleans. Mr. Speaker, last Friday I had the privilege of inviting the people of Orleans to a movie night at Cinestars. The pandemic has obviously had a great impact on our ability to organize events and to meet in person. And so I'm proud that we were able to get together before the holidays. It was heartwarming to see generations of families spending rare quality time together, enjoying a free movie with popcorn and juice for the little ones. And some of the bigger ones, too. I'd like to thank the 350 or so Orleans residents who joined us and the staff at Cinestars for hosting us. And a special thank you to my team and the volunteers who ensured everyone's safety by checking everyone's vaccination status and by ensuring that public health guidance was followed. To conclude, as this is my last intervention in the chamber before the holidays, I'd like to wish all of my constituents in Orleans and all of you, my dear colleagues, I wish that you have a very happy holiday season and a happy New Year 2022.
The Honourable Member for Battle River Crowfoot.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Irvin Charles Abbott of Three Hills passed away earlier this fall, and it is an honor to recognize him today in this place. Mr. Rabbit, as he was known to my kids, showed during his almost 61 years that individuals can make a difference. I got to know Irv when he first got involved in the Battle River Crowfoot Conservative EDA, and we quickly became friends. Irv's friendship was impactful in the lives of everyone he knew. If you knew him, you knew he lived in the fast lane that included tractor pulls, motorbikes, and airplanes. But in the midst of that, he always demonstrated the love of Christ. He could be counted on to make time for those in need no matter how busy he was. He always stood up for what's right and had a work ethic that few could keep up with. Sandra, Micah, and Kayla, my deepest condolences as you grieve. Thank you for sharing Irv with us. The world could certainly use many more like him. Irv, my friend, you are missed, but your impact will not be forgotten. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Parkdale High Park.
Mr. Speaker, today Ismailis here in Canada and around the world mark the 85th birthday of His Highness the Aga Khan. It's an important occasion, one that gives us a chance to reflect on the impact His Highness has had in his over 64 years as Imam. In 1972, the Aga Khan was pivotal in securing the safe arrival in Canada of thousands of Ugandan Asian refugees fleeing the dictatorship of Idi Amin, including me and my family. As an Ismaili representative in this House, I take great pride in the Aga Khan's contributions. In Canada, these include the Aga Khan Museum and the Ismaili Centre in Toronto, and the Global Centre for Pluralism right here in Ottawa, which exemplifies our shared values of inclusion and diversity. Internationally, the Aga Khan's commitment to health, economic development, and children's education in the developing world is renowned. It is this legacy that prompted the Government of Canada to confer upon the Aga Khan our highest tribute, that of honorary citizenship. On this special day, I wish all of my fellow Ismailis Salgira Kushali Mubarak, and to His Highness I say, happy birthday, Hazar Imam.
The Honourable Member for Hamilton Mountain.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to humbly join my colleagues in congratulating the Winnipeg Blue Bombers on their Grey Cup victory. But I'd particularly like to thank the Hamilton Tiger Cats for an absolutely incredible season. This jersey I'm wearing is from 1999, the last time the Ticats won the Grey Cup. It was signed by Ticat Hall of Famer Joe Montford a day before the legendary game. 1999 was also the year this Calgary-raised journalist arrived in Hamilton to work at the Hamilton Spectator, and of course the Ticats were playing the Calgary Stampeders in the final that year. You can see where my allegiances now lie, Mr. Speaker. Ticat fans are the loudest and most passionate in the CFL, and their enthusiasm is infectious. This Grey Cup was special to our city, given that it was played at Tim Hortons Field in downtown Hamilton, and Hamilton's much-beloved Arkells rocked the halftime show. Thank you again, Ticats, for an exciting season. We are so proud of our hometown team.
The honourable member for Hastings, Lennox and Addington.
On a starry night many years ago, there was a message of hope. Be not afraid. I bring you good news of great joy that will be for all people. On this night, a Savior was born. Glory to God in the highest, and peace on earth and goodwill to all people. If there's ever been a time when we needed some good news to pierce through the darkness of fear, doubt, and despair, it would be the last 2 years. May we embrace the peace that was promised all those years ago and overcome the fear and uncertainty that we face today. May the goodwill that was expressed that night continue through our lives, as has been so clearly displayed in the valiant efforts of our frontline workers, small business owners, truckers, grocers, farmers, teachers, postal workers, and so many others who have made all tremendous sacrifices and have laid together the foundation for our country's comeback. May the love, peace, and hope that was brought that night many years ago be with all of you and your families this Christmas. God bless.
The honourable member for Humber River, Black Creek.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to pay tribute to the memory of the former Mayor of Toronto, Mel Lastman. Mel may have been a small man in stature, but he was a giant against others. He was never afraid to take on other levels of government and fight for the necessary funding for many issues, such as women's shelters, affordable housing, and the expansion of the Young Subway. Mayor Lastman was a champion of his beloved city, North York, for 25 years. He was an example to all of us as elected officials of what real commitment was and what hard work can accomplish. Mel had a heart to help others and was always ready to help those with charitable initiatives, no matter how outlandish the activity may have been. He was a wonderful politician, an entrepreneur, a successful businessman. And of course, those of us from Ontario can picture him on our TV screens with his famous line, "Nobody." It was an honor to work with Mel for many years. To his sons, Blaine and Dale, and other family members, our deepest condolences. We will miss you, Mel. Best wishes.
The honourable member for Calgary, Midnapore.
It's my favorite time of the year in Calgary, Midnapore, Christmas. Growing up, every Christmas Eve, I would go skating on Lake Bonavista, attend church at Holy Nativity, and then we were off to my grandmother's home in Acadia for treats and to open one single present. And the holiday season is alive and well in 2021 as constituents from Fairview to Walden continue to celebrate. They might go meet Santa at South Centre, play hockey on Lake Sundance, or cross-country ski the trails of Fish Creek. They will light up the pond in Legacy, go to the Christmas Craft Fair in Queensland, or meet up with friends for a festive pint at Brewster's, Kildare's, or the Windsor Rose. You can find them stocking up on antipasti and panettone at the Italian Centre, or finishing their shopping at the stores of Shaughnessy or Willow Park Village. Enjoying the holiday lights of Park 96, Lake Bonaventure, and Maple Ridge. As we celebrate with family, with friends, and community, you can be sure in Calgary, Midnapore, it's the most wonderful time of the year.
The honourable member for Battleford, Lloydminster.
Mr. Speaker, this Christmas, Canadian families across the country are feeling the squeeze. Inflation is fueling a cost of living crisis, and for my constituents, it is a problem compounded by the Prime Minister's failed carbon tax.
That's right.
Paul, a small business owner in my riding, recently shared his gas bill with me that included a carbon tax charge nearly equal to the amount of charged for fuel. Heating one's home is not a luxury, Mr. Speaker, and Paul is nervous about the upcoming winter gas bills. He certainly is not the only one. The failed Liberal carbon tax is driving the cost up on basic necessities and is particularly punishing on rural communities.
That's right.
Mr. Speaker, it is about time that this Liberal government stopped shrugging its shoulders and focused on delivering solutions to addressing the cost of living crisis in this country. And for my constituents, Mr. Speaker, in Battleford's Lloydminster, removing the failed Liberal carbon tax is a great place to start.
Here, 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 here. The honourable member for Etobicoke Centre.
Mr. Speaker, as a boy, I lived next door to the Polish consulate in Toronto, and I remember seeing countless demonstrations by the Polish-Canadian community in support of Solidarność, one of the most well-known and most successful pro-democracy and human rights movements of our time. The communist regime in Poland wanted to crush Solidarność, and to do that, 40 years ago, they imposed martial law. Solidarność was banned, borders were closed, tens of thousands of people were arrested, and almost 100 people were killed. Today, on the 40th anniversary of martial law in Poland, I rise to commemorate the victims, to pay tribute to the Polish people who continued their struggle for freedom and democracy and the rule of law, values that we all share, and to recognize the tremendous role that Canada and Polish Canadians played in supporting Solidarność and in welcoming many refugees who were fleeing that oppression. This House, in fact, passed a motion unanimously in support of the Polish people at that time. Today, let us honor their memory. Cześć ich pamięci.
The honourable member for South Okanagan, West Kootenay.
Mr. Speaker, I want to first thank the people of South Okanagan, West Kootenay for giving me the honour of representing them here in this chamber. And we're debating some of the most important issues of our time here: climate change, the pandemic, deadly opioids, and a housing crisis. Canadians expect us to all work together to solve these problems. Now, Mr. Speaker, this is the time of year when we think of less fortunate Canadians, whether they've lost their jobs during the pandemic, lost their homes to fire or flood or rent evictions, or whether they simply find it more difficult to pay for groceries. For all Canadians, this is a time of hope, and they have invested some of that hope in our deliberations here to build a fairer Canada. And this is a time of year for family. This is my parents' anniversary. And for my wife's family, with their Swedish ancestry, this is Santa Lucia, a time to celebrate light in the darkness of winter. And so, Mr. Speaker, I wish you and all Canadians a safe and happy Christmas.
The honourable member for Drummond. Mr. Speaker, 25 years ago this week, a man who had captured the soul of Quebec with his beautiful words, the poet Gaston Miron, left us. Miron was unjustly imprisoned during the October crisis, but he never sank into bitterness or violence. He knew that it's through love that we set each other free. In his work, Miron showed us that no one should be ashamed to evoke their history and culture in order to find meaning. In an age obsessed with individual freedoms, Miron taught us that the collective we is a noble idea and that we have a shared destiny. He sincerely believed that it was by working together to form a nation that the women and men of Quebec would reach their potential. Miron believed that one day we would all be united in a country of our own. At that point, we will have become, as he so aptly put it, fierce creatures of hope. Dear poet, 25 years after your death, your words still resonate among the people that you called the people who never stopped not being born.
The honourable member for Dauphin, Swan River, Neepawa.
Mr. Speaker, despite it never leaving, the Grey Cup is back in Manitoba where it belongs. Mr. Speaker, after a thrilling Grey Cup final, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers were victorious after a nail-biting 33-25 overtime win against the Hamilton Ticats. Sunday's victory came as no surprise to most Canadians after a stellar regular season by the CFL's best-performing team. Not only did the Blue Bombers win the coveted Grey Cup, but the team also won Player of the Year, Coach of the Year, Lineman of the Year, and Defensive Player of the Year. Wow! Next year's Grey Cup will be hosted in Saskatchewan's Mosaic Stadium. And I can assure this House that nothing would be better than achieving a Grey Cup hat trick in our favorite rival's home stadium. We will see you in 2022 to once again defend the Cup.
The honourable member for Winnipeg South.
Mr. Speaker, what a Grey Cup final. Congratulations to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers on their second consecutive Grey Cup victory in a gutsy overtime win over the tenacious and talented Hamilton Tiger Cats. With the best 2021 record, the Bombers were led by the CFL's Coach of the Year, Mike O'Shea, the league's outstanding player, quarterback Zach Polaris, and the CFL's most outstanding defensive player, linebacker Adam Bighill, who is a resident of my riding of Winnipeg South. 3 homegrown talents, Andrew Harris, Brady Oliveira, and Nick Dembski, contributed mightily to a great season and winning the Cup. All 3 were born and raised in Winnipeg and attended Oak Park High School. Player comments after the game relayed the true brotherhood that exists between Bomber teammates and the love they have for our community. They played for each other, and they played for our amazing and grateful Winnipeg fans. And we are so, so proud the Grey Cup is coming home to Manitoba.
Oral questions. Question orale. The honourable member for Portage-Lisgar.
Mr. Speaker, today the new Minister of Defence apologized for the Liberals' failure to take sexual misconduct seriously, and that's all well and good. But what we haven't heard is an apology from the Minister of International Development. That minister was actively involved in covering up allegations against the most senior officer in the Canadian Armed Forces. So, will the Minister of International Development stand up today and apologize for the role that he personally played in covering up sexual misconduct in the Canadian Armed Forces?
A great question. The Honourable Minister of Defence.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member opposite for that question. The Canadian Armed Forces have always had our backs, but far too many members of the forces have suffered sexual harassment and sexual assault or discrimination. We must acknowledge the pain and trauma that have occurred, and today's apology is just one example of the steps that we are going to take to work towards a place where all members of the armed forces feel safe, respected, and protected. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Portage-Lisgar.
Well, the former minister needs to apologize, and frankly, it is disappointing to see that minister covering up for the negligence of the former minister and the role that he played in covering up sexual misconduct allegations. Speaker, small businesses in Canada are reeling from the lockdowns and closing their door at an alarming rate. Knowing this, though, the Liberals have decided to go ahead with their CPP increase, a payroll tax increase that can kill many small businesses and will. Now, the Minister of Tourism, when talking about this, said callously, well, small businesses can afford it. So why are the Liberals once again hitting small businesses when they're already down and out?
The Honourable Minister for Tourism.
For her question. It's clear the Conservatives don't like the CPP, Mr. Speaker, but we and Canadians do. Let's be clear, the CPP enhancements represent a major step in improving retirement outcomes for all Canadians, allaying the fears of younger people about precarious work, and making sure that they have a retirement for the future. The CPP is among, if not the, most successful program in the history of Canada. We are proud of it. Why aren't they?
The honourable member for Portage-Lisgar.
Well, the Liberals think that small business owners are tax cheats, and it's clear from their action that they're doing everything they can to hurt small businesses. Inflation is already making everything more expensive. So what's the Liberals' solution to this? A massive payroll tax increase starting January 1st. According to the most recent Stats Canada data, business closures are already outpacing business openings. This is a problem. Why are the Liberals continuing their attack on small businesses? Why are they doing this to the entrepreneurs in Canada?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Canadian economy is growing. We know that the Conservatives don't like that fact, but Canadians do. 154,000 jobs announced in November, 106% of jobs recovered since the base of the pandemic, 5.4% GDP growth, a AAA credit rating, and the lowest debt to GDP ratio in the country. The economy is growing. Canadians know it. They don't like it.
The honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, as just inflation hits all Canadian families, there's more bad news coming. On January 1st, payroll taxes for EI and the CPP will continue to rise. This affects businesses and workers directly. Those earning $56,000 or more per year will have to pay more. We need this as much as we need a root canal, Mr. Speaker. Will the government give workers a break and businesses as well? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, the CPP is one of our most successful programs in Canadian history. And significant improvements have been made to the retirements of workers and the uncertainty around their retirement savings. This is one of our most successful programs, and that's what we are going to do for affordability for Canadians. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, we know that the pandemic is still causing serious damage to the Canadian economy. It's affecting tourism and hospitality. That's 1.8 million Canadians who work in those industries. That's why on Friday we proposed that Bill C2 be split into two to quickly and directly address these problems affecting hospitality and tourism. Is the government willing to cooperate with us so that we can pass measures for tourism and hospitality immediately to affect those most affected by the problem? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, the answer is simple. We are going to continue to invest in Canadians, in tourism and hospitality for all workers and businesses. It's up to the Conservatives to decide whether they're going to continue to support us and support Canadians, or are they going to decide that Canadians aren't worth support when they most need it. We, on this side, we are going to support Canadians. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, let's set the record straight. The law on the secular nature of the state was democratically adopted by the National Assembly on June 16, 2019, over 2 years ago. This law applies to all Quebecers and doesn't target any particular community. It doesn't discriminate against anyone. Everyone is subject to it. That's easy to understand, it seems to me. The Prime Minister must be able to understand that. So when is this government going to stop bashing Quebec here and abroad? The Honourable Minister of Justice. Mr. Speaker, our position has always been clear. No one should lose their job because of how they dress or because of their religious convictions in Canada. What we've seen in Chelsea is a community mobilizing to defend one of its members, a teacher, and parents now have to have very hard conversations with their kids. Defending a person's rights before the courts is an integral part of our democracy, and as we've said, we will continue to monitor the process closely. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Whatever, Mr. Speaker. Conservative MPs from English Canada, Liberal MPs from Quebec, Liberal ministers and the Prime Minister himself, one after another, they bash Quebec and its Bill 21. Eventually, enough is enough. We're sick to death of this and the Prime Minister's wishy-washy statements. Why can't the Prime Minister just be clear for once and tell us whether they intend to mount a court challenge to Quebec's democratically enacted Bill 21? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, it's always interesting to see the Bloc wringing their hands over this. We have said from the get-go that we were personally against this bill, but it's a piece of Quebec legislation, and we need to leave it to the process to unfold before the courts in Quebec as led by Quebecers. The Honourable Member for New Westminster Burnaby. The most vulnerable seniors across the country are in unbearable distress. The Liberal government has deprived them of their guaranteed income supplement. Instead of making the wealthy pay, this government's attacking the poorest seniors and putting them in an impossible situation, and in some cases even a desperate situation. Will the Liberals fix this situation immediately so that our seniors don't find themselves without housing, without food, in the middle of the winter? The Honourable Minister for Seniors.
House, Mr. Speaker, we've always been supporting seniors, especially those most vulnerable seniors, by strengthening their GIS, Mr. Speaker. We've also moved very quickly over the summer to provide immediate and direct payment to seniors, Mr. Speaker. When it comes to the SERB GIS issue, Mr. Speaker, we are aware of this issue and we're actively working on to ensure that we support those affected. Mr. Speaker, we've always been there for seniors and we're going to continue to be there for them.
The honourable member for North Island Powell River.
Mr. Speaker, seniors are homeless because of this government's failure right now in this country. Seniors are telling us that GIS being cut means that they're not able to pay for important things like health care for their cancer treatment or rent. And some of these seniors are already living on the streets or in their cars in the Yukon, Mr. Speaker. The Liberals have no problem giving the rich their fair share when they're paying out bonuses, but when it comes to the most vulnerable seniors in this country, they won't stand up for them. They need it fixed now. When will this government take action for seniors who are vulnerable?
The Honourable Minister for Seniors.
Mr. Speaker, strengthening income support for seniors has been a priority for our government. Mr. Speaker, that's why one of the first things we did, Mr. Speaker, was to restore the age of eligibility for OAS back to 65, Mr. Speaker. We've strengthened the GIS for vulnerable seniors. We provided one-time payment during the pandemic to help seniors afford the things that they need, Mr. Speaker. We will be increasing support through OAS for older seniors next year. Mr. Speaker, the issue that the member raised, we are aware of this. We're actively working on this to ensure that we provide support to those affected. On this side of the House, we've always supported seniors, and we're going to continue to support them.
The
honourable member for Richmond Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, as businesses struggle to get back on track, a Globe and Mail article reports that EI and CPP premiums for employers are set to surge by 18% over 2 years. This increase is the result of political decisions by the Liberals to spend and make Canadian families and businesses pay for their deficits. My question is for the Prime Minister. Could he announce a break for Canadian businesses and workers in his upcoming economic update? Yes or no? The Honourable Minister of International Trade.
I want to thank the honourable member for that really important question, particularly because it's about small businesses and entrepreneurs in our country who are really the backbones of the Canadian economy. You have seen us having their back throughout this entire pandemic. It has been really important that they get small business loan support, that they get support to keep people on the payroll, to pay the bills like paying the rent. This is the kind of work that we have been doing. We have always had the backs of small businesses, and we will always have the backs of small businesses in Canada.
The honourable member for Richmond Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, the Liberal way is simple. Tax more to spend more. Or spend more and then make Canadians pay for it. The president of the CFIB said, "We're going to see payroll tax hikes as far as the eye can see." Our entrepreneurs need some slack, not more tax. Can the Prime Minister confirm that he will not pass the buck for his spending to our businesses and hardworking Canadians?
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the CFIB for their collaboration and cooperation and their engagement throughout this entire pandemic. Their voices throughout this very difficult time has helped us create those very emergency support programs that have helped businesses. Countless businesses, I think, have told all of us across the aisle here, those support programs staying in place so that they can get through this very, very difficult time of the pandemic.
The honourable member for Richmond Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, the fact is the Liberals have created a $34 billion deficit in the EI fund because of their decisions. That's an extra $1,100 per worker that they've taken out of employers' pockets since 2015. Will the Prime Minister announce measures that will help rather than hurt Canadian businesses and self-employed workers instead of spending, increasing taxes and deficits? Yes or no? The Honourable Minister of Tourism. Mr. Speaker, we are working very hard to make life more affordable for all Canadians, and that's why we have great news today in New Brunswick, where we signed another child care agreement. That's good news for people in New Brunswick and all across the country. But, Mr. Speaker, the member of Carleton yesterday said it's better to have women stay at home instead of joining the workforce. How is it that members opposite don't want women in the workplace? That's unacceptable. The Honourable Member for Carleton.
The Finance Minister told the committee that she didn't know how much debt was in Canada or how much a 1% increase in interest rates would cost the federal government, or when she predicted that there would be deflation right before the biggest run-up in inflation in 20 years, we assumed it was just more media manipulation like Twitter found she had already done. Now we learn in her favorite newspaper that, in fact, it was the following. She rarely takes department briefings, hasn't spoken to her deputies in months. When will she consult with her department before getting it wrong again?
The Honourable Minister.
Who can tell where the Conservatives are these days? On the one hand, they say we need to support seniors more. On the other side, they say don't increase the CPP. Well, Mr. Speaker, we're not going to listen to the Conservatives, because when it comes to taking care of seniors and their income security, we're making important investments today for the future, Mr. Speaker, and our government will continue to do that so that we're there for Canadians every single day, no matter which stage of their life. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For Carleton.
The only thing they're doing for seniors is driving up inflation to vaporize senior savings, increase the cost of home heating, and increase the cost of groceries by $1,000 a year. And what's the minister doing about it? Well, according to her favorite Liberal newspaper, not attending her briefings. In fact, she hasn't spoken to her deputies, many of her deputies, in months, and she's spending her time on political outreach, Mr. Speaker. When will this finance minister start doing her job rather than just passing the bill for her failures on to Canadians?
The Honourable Minister for Families.
It's a little hard to take the member opposite seriously when he calls a child care agreement a slush fund, Mr. Speaker. What we know on this side of the House is that we're going to make investments that are going to make a difference for families. In fact, Mr. Speaker, we just announced a new child care agreement with New Brunswick today. Making that the 9th province and 10th jurisdiction in Canada that will have affordable child care for families right across this country. Mr. Speaker, we're not going to stop there. We're going to keep delivering for families right across the country.
The Honourable Member for Carleton.
Well, the Finance Minister refuses to rise and defend herself against this report, even though it was in her very favorite newspaper, the Globe and Mail. The Globe further says that her department is in total disarray. This while inflation is at a 2-decade high. We have a housing bubble that could lead to a housing crash, and the national debt is over $1 trillion. So before she causes inflation to gallop further and costs of living higher on Canadians, will she stand and commit that she will get a handle on her department and get back to work?
The Honourable Minister for Tourism.
Mr. Speaker, we are working hard to make the lives of Canadians more affordable. We have a fantastic announcement today on childcare deal signed in New Brunswick that is good for New Brunswickers, it's good for Canadians, and yet yesterday the member for Carleton called accessing childcare like putting your hand in a slush fund. I cannot believe that the member opposite would insult Canadians in that way. Will that member apologize to hardworking families from coast to coast to coast?
The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We haven't heard the last of Roxham Road. This morning we learned the federal government's renewing a 5-year lease for the border facilities used to receive migrants who cross illegally. This means that for 5 years, the federal government has no intention of closing Roxham Road. Mr. Speaker, can we still talk about irregular crossings when the federal government is making its reception facilities permanent? Why are they legalizing this illegal border crossing instead of dealing with the problem by suspending the Safe Third Country Agreement? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, Canada remains a country with a fair, compassionate refugee system that meets our international legal obligations and protects the safety and security of Canadians and those wishing to live here. The Honourable Member for Trois-Rivières. Mr. Speaker, the government, by renewing the Roxham Road lease for 5 years, has no intention of closing those border facilities. Obviously, there are costs involved, and it will reassure no one that it's a Liberal who's benefiting from this. In fact, the federal lease was signed without a bidding process in 2017, with a contributor of about $23,000 to the Liberal Party. The lease was renewed for 5 years, once again without bidding. This is a major problem with a simple solution, though. Why not shut down Roxham Road instead of diving into another Liberal ethics scandal? The Honourable Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations. Mr. Speaker, you have to understand that this was a fair market value lease. The Honourable Member for Trois-Rivières. Mr. Speaker, things are not going well at Roxham Road. First of all, by announcing that it won't act for 5 years, the government is perpetuating and normalizing illegal crossings at Roxham Road. Secondly, it's paying for its untendered border facilities to a Liberal donor. And third, it refuses to even tell us how much it's costing Quebecers. These are three serious ethical breaches when a solution exists. The Safe Third Country Agreement should be scrapped. Why would the government rather plunge itself into another Liberal ethics scandal instead of closing Roxham Road? The Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Speaker, I think the Honourable Member can appreciate that there were necessary measures put in place to protect the health and well-being of Canadians during the pandemic. Now that the situation has changed, we've made good on our domestic and legal obligations to ensure we're treating asylum seekers in accordance with Canada's and international law. I will remind the Honourable Member opposite that we are moving forward in collaboration with our partners in the province of Quebec, and I'll also share that I have a very productive call on this and other matters as recently as last week. We're going to move forward in a way that is responsible, protects the health and well-being of Canadians, and considers the perspective of the province of Quebec every step of the way.
The Honourable Member for Abbotsford.
Well, I'm going to ask the Minister again. This time I'd like to have a real answer. He decided that only the Red Cross is worthy of receiving matching funding. Yet BC has been devastated by this flooding disaster. Thousands are without homes. We need all hands on deck. So the Salvation Army, the MCC, Archway, Samaritan's Purse, United Way, Abbotsford Disaster Relief, even the churches and gurdwaras all stepped up to help. Yet all have been snubbed by this minister. So will he now reverse course and announce that they too will receive matching funding? Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister of Emergency Preparedness.
Speaker, I'd like to take the opportunity to acknowledge the remarkable generosity and support that British Columbians and Canadians right across the country have provided to those impacted by these terrible floods. But, Mr. Speaker, we have been working very closely with the British Columbia government and the Canadian Red Cross in order to match funds, and so far nearly $75 million has been accumulated between the three donors in order to support British Columbians. The Canadian Red Cross is doing important work in registering those individuals and conducting assessments to ensure that the monies go where they are needed the most, Mr. Speaker. But at the same time, we welcome the generosity of so many British Columbians in supporting their neighbours.
The member for Langley Aldergrove.
Mr. Speaker, by now the Minister for Emergency Preparedness will be well aware that part of the flooding in the Fraser Valley last month was caused by a breach in the Nooksack River diking system in Washington State. Yet he should have known about this a long time ago. There are certainly enough reports and studies to that effect, but the government failed to act in a timely fashion to avoid the flooding last month. Can the minister commit to today to making sure that he works with the federal U.S. counterparts to make sure this never happens again?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I'd like to thank the member opposite for a very important question. And we know that the water that fell in the Cascades a month ago accumulated in the Nooksack River, and much of it has flowed into the Sumas Valley, impacting Canadians on our side of the border. We are and continue to work with the Americans to manage this, but we are working as well with local officials, the people who live and reside in the Canadian portion of that impacted area, and the British Columbia government. There have been a number of studies that clearly indicate that there needs to be significant investment in rebuilding a more resilient infrastructure, and that's the work we're undertaking now, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Mission Matsqui Fraser Canyon.
Mr. Speaker, the devastation impacting Mission Matsqui Fraser Canyon and all of BC is unprecedented. Farmers in the blueberry sector are especially terrified about the consequences of another flood, its impact on food security and the economy of BC. Will the Minister of Agriculture commit, especially for Matsqui, British Columbia, to funding the dike repairs and enhancements through the Lower Mainland and the Fraser Valley to make sure that when the next flood comes, our agricultural producers are not put out? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Speaker, I'd like to thank the member opposite for a very important question. And we know that farmers in this region have been very significantly impacted by these floods. And it's why, Mr. Speaker, our Minister of Agriculture went and met with their BC counterpart, visited the area last week, and toured those impacted.
I'm sorry, Honourable Minister, I am trying to hear, but I mean the noise is just getting to a level that I can't make out the answer. I'll have him start right to the beginning, please, so that we can all hear the answer that the honourable member for Mission Matsqui Fraser Canyon asked. He wants to hear an answer.
Mr. Speaker, and I'll certainly speak up to allow him to hear me. This is a very important question.
Okay, let's try it again.
Mr. Speaker, it's unfortunate some of the members opposite are afraid to hear the answer. But Mr. Speaker, last week, our Minister of Agriculture traveled to British Columbia and met with her counterpart and visited many of the farmers that were impacted in that region. It is very clear that we are going to have to provide significant supports, not only to those who have lost livestock in this tragedy, but also in those blueberry farmers to whom he references. There's significant work to be done, and that's why later on today, the Joint Force Committee of the federal government and the governments of British Columbia and Indigenous leadership in the area will be convening an important meeting to work together to solve this issue.
For London Fanshawe.
Today, this government offered an apology to address the harmful culture in the armed forces, but an apology doesn't erase their failure to act over the last 6 years. The Liberals have ignored recommendations of numerous reports. They have failed to take action and stop the harms committed against women over and over again.
One moment, the honourable member for La Prairie. We don't have the simultaneous interpretation into French, Mr. Speaker.
Translation has stopped. I'll keep talking. Okay, I see a thumbs up. Translation has started again. The honourable member for London Fanshawe, please start from the beginning.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, this government offered an apology to address the harmful culture in the armed forces, but an apology doesn't erase their failure to act over the last 6 years. The Liberals have ignored the recommendations of numerous reports. They have failed to take action and stop the harms committed against women over and over again. This government has to prove they're going to do better. When will this government finally move past nice words and commit to implementing all of the recommendations of the Deschamps report so women can serve equally?
The Honourable Minister of Defence.
Mr. Speaker, our government takes the issues raised by the member opposite very, very seriously. That is why on November 4th, I moved as minister to accept the interim recommendation of Madame Arbour. That is why we offered an apology today. That is why we are going to be moving very quickly after we receive the final recommendations of Madame Arbour. That is why we are implementing Bill C-77. Mr. Speaker, our government takes the issues raised in the question very seriously, and we will work very hard to regain the confidence of Canadians in the Canadian Armed Forces. Thank you.
The honourable member for Rosemount Petite Patrie. Thousands of migrants are fleeing persecution and seeking shelter in Canada. They're not illegals, they're desperate. The Liberals decided to help a Liberal Party donor to make money off the backs of these people. Wait for it. Instead of fixing the situation, they're signing checks to their friend to lease the lands on which house asylum seekers near Roxham Road. The Liberals just had to withdraw from the Safe Third Country Agreement, and bingo. Why are the Liberals handing out presents to their friends instead of helping the most vulnerable? The Honourable Minister. I thank my colleague for that question.
They are critically important to our government, Mr. Speaker. The rental agreement was negotiated based on fair market value to arrive at a competitive price. Given the location of the hotel and its proximity to the border, this was an ideal location for CBSA to use for this purpose. Our government is delivering open, fair, and transparent procurement processes while obtaining the best value for Canadians. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Kings Hants.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We know the importance of childcare to helping reduce costs for families, to help support parents getting back to the workplace, to support jobs and opportunities. Can the Minister of Families and Social Services provide this House an update on the work that our government is doing to establish programs across the country, particularly in lieu of today's good news?
Minister for Families.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it would really be my pleasure to respond to the member's excellent question. We today announced the 9th province and territory of New Brunswick. Signing on to the Canada-wide Early Learning and Childcare Agreement. This is fantastic news for families in New Brunswick who are going to see a 50% reduction in fees within the first year, getting to $10 a day by year 5. We're going to increase the number of spaces by 3,400. And unlike the members opposite, we know childcare is good for families, it's good for kids, and it's good for...
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, when the Prime Minister says that he's not worried about the nation's finances, we know he's telling the truth. He recently awarded a 5-year contract without a tender to a friend of the Liberal Party for the lease of lands near Roxham Road. Can the Prime Minister show transparency and say how much taxpayers paid for this 5-year lease? The Honourable Minister. I will repeat what I told the bloc, Mr. Speaker. It's a contract that was granted at fair market value. The same donor gave to the Conservative Party for 8 years. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Thank you. I expected the minister to give that answer, but since 2015, he's giving money to the Liberal Party, and we see what's happened. He's getting this contract. The kickback is significant. We want to know why they're continuing to offer a 5-year contract for land at Roxham Road. Will they continue the Roxham Road problem forever? The Honourable Minister. Perhaps he has something on his conscience, Mr. Speaker. He should answer for what he did for 8 years. We are paying fair market value, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member.
For Elgin, Middlesex, London.
I would like...
I want to remind,
I will remind the members that in the House, it is important to use parliamentary language. We have to respect each other. However, also, we must remember that when you throw rocks, you get rocks back.
London.
Mr. Speaker, Canada's youth are in the middle of a mental health crisis. Less than half of youth survey respondents now report excellent or very good mental health. That is down 20% from pre-pandemic days. Increased substance use and heightened anxiety are on the rise for youth struggling with their mental health. We need to reverse this trend. What concrete steps is the government taking to uplift our youth and put them back on track for success?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'm very pleased to respond to the very important question of the member.
is indeed that I think that the integrated youth services is probably the farthest along in our quest for national standards on mental health. The wraparound services that wrap around each young person with their unique needs. I'm very excited that places like the Foundry in British Columbia, these are excellent programs, and I look forward to working with the member and all members of this House to make sure that all young people are able to get the services they need.
The honourable member for Edmonton-Wetaskiwin.
Mr. Speaker, this is a national crisis. Saturday marked the one-year anniversary of a unanimous House of Commons motion to take, quote, immediate action on an easy-to-remember 24/7 three-digit suicide prevention hotline, 988. Since that unanimous vote, 4,000 Canadian lives have been lost to suicide. In their darkest, most desperate moment, Canadians shouldn't have to do a Google search to find help that will save their lives. By what date will Canada finally have an operational three-digit 988 suicide prevention hotline?
Honourable Minister for Mental Health.
Speaker, and I thank the member for his question, but his ongoing advocacy for mental health. This is the three-digit number will be a very important asset as we go forward. It is, as you know, being reviewed by the CRTC, but we need to make sure that when people call that number, that it is hooked up to the most appropriate services, and that we are going to also change the idea of mental health first responders to make sure that this is not responded to in a wellness check with that disastrous consequences.
The honourable member for Salaberry-Soroy. Mr. Speaker, groceries will cost 7% more, according to experts, yet Ottawa is simultaneously cutting the guaranteed income supplement of some of the most vulnerable working seniors. We're talking about 183,000 seniors who got the CERB. While the groceries will cost significantly more, the government clawed back an average of $3,500. Thursday in committee, the Minister of Finance confirmed that she was actively seeking a solution and that she would have more to say about it in a few days. Mr. Speaker, this leads us to the economic update, which is coming tomorrow. Will the minister announce a solution? The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage. Mr. Speaker, has not been easy for seniors throughout the pandemic, but we've been here for them. We've paid $1,500 into the most vulnerable seniors' pockets, increased old age security, increased by $500 more per year the guaranteed income supplement. We took rapid action to help people with benefits such as CERB. There are impacts on the most vulnerable seniors, and we're working on this, Mr. Speaker. We've always been there for our seniors, and we will always, always be there for our seniors. The honourable member for Salaberry-Soroy. Mr. Speaker, groceries are costing 7% more, but the income of seniors under 75 years of age is not going up by a single cent because the government is depriving them of the old age security increase they deserve. This is forcing seniors whose health is often more fragile to make sacrifices when it comes to what they buy for groceries. I know that the minister is well aware of the fact that costs are exploding, and freezing the pensions of seniors under 75 means condemning them to poverty. Given that reality, why is she stubbornly maintaining two classes of seniors?
For seniors.
Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we've always been there for seniors, Mr. Speaker, and I'm happy to talk about our record, Mr. Speaker. One of the first things we did was restore the age of eligibility for OAS and GIS back to 67 back to 65. We've enhanced the CPP. We have raised the GIS for single seniors. We've invested billions of dollars into home care. We have invested building 7,000 new affordable housing units for seniors. On this side of the House, we're always going to support seniors, Mr. Speaker.
Bravo. The honourable member for Coast of Bay Central Notre Dame.
Mr. Speaker, fish have tails and oceans have currents, but this government does not seem to know that. The latest move by this government see them virtual signaling again and pushing that we cover 50% of our oceans with marine protected areas by 2050. When this Prime Minister will be drawing CPP. Will the Minister of Fisheries stand with coastal communities and stop threatening their livelihood to earn from the sea with these top-down Ottawa MPA targets? Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister of Fisheries.
Mr. Speaker, fishers and fisher communities are very important to our government.
and is conservation of the oceans, and that's what marine protected areas are about. We're working with the communities and Indigenous communities to develop marine protected areas. They will be the nursery area for restoring fish and having an abundance of fish that will serve our fishing communities for generations to come.
Good answer.
The honourable member for North Okanagan-Shuswap.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are paying more and more for food, and this government is making it more expensive. Last March, the government blindsided spot prawn harvesters with a decision prohibiting a packaging practice that's been in place for decades. This government's decision is to increase plastic use and packaging costs, making Canadian food less affordable for Canadians already facing bigger grocery bills. Why is the Fisheries Minister continuing her attack on independent fish harvesters and Canadians that need to buy food?
The Honourable Minister of Fisheries.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I am so proud of our government's work to reduce plastic in the oceans, reduce ghost gear, and we'll continue to clean up the oceans. With respect to packaging of prawns, I will be reviewing this potential decision, but I will tell you we will be thinking about the conservation of all of our fish stock and ways that the Department of Fisheries and Oceans can ensure that the rules are being respected in the fishing of prawns.
The honourable member for South Shore St. Margaret.
Mr. Speaker, I think this government needs some time management because they're working and studying things and achieving nothing. Gary of Comox received a clawback letter from DFO for his COVID fish harvester benefits. He appealed, and of course in October, DFO said, oops, we're wrong, you deserve them. Then 4 weeks later, they wrote a letter back to him asking for the $6,000 back. DFO and this minister seem confused by their own rules. Gary fulfilled all the requirements. Will the minister show who is in charge and let Gary and all fish harvesters keep their benefits? Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister of Fisheries.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'm proud of the work our government did on so many benefits to put them quickly in place and get them out the door to people who needed them so desperately. From the outset, the terms were clear for the fish harvesters' benefit. It was specifically for self-employed commercial fish harvesters. Those who were not self-employed will have been asked to repay the benefit.
The honourable member for Louis-Hébert. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. As we see encouraging signs with regard to the economic recovery, it's clear that the recovery is not proceeding at the same pace across the country or in all sectors, particularly in the tourism sector. In my region, the Quebec region, it's the nicest region in Canada, and it normally gets thousands and thousands of tourists who come every year. It has a very vibrant tourism industry, but it's subject to the impact of the pandemic. I would like to ask the Minister of Tourism and Associate Minister for Finance how they're supporting the tourism sector. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Minister of Tourism. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank my colleague from Louis-Hébert for that excellent question. Bill C-2 contains quite excellent measures, solutions, if I may say, to help entrepreneurs in the tourism sector, such as supports for operators of hotels, motels, chalets, lodges, youth hostels, restaurants, food trucks, caterers, cafes, cinemas, concert halls, museums, gardens, botanical gardens. We invite all members to support C2.
For Kenora.
Mr. Speaker, over the last 2 years, every core program delivered by FedNor has failed to meet its service standards for the timelines of funding applications. Mr. Speaker, FedNor is relied upon by municipalities, small businesses, and First Nations across Northern Ontario, and they need clarity on the status of their application timelines. So can the minister responsible please inform this House of what specific measures she is taking to fix this issue?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I thank the member opposite for the question. I think it's an extremely important question. We'll take it back and get back to the member. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Lambton, Kent, Middlesex.
Speaker, the Walpole Island
Island First Nations ferry in my riding of Lambton, Kent, Middlesex is a critical connection between the island and Algonac, Michigan. The ferry plays a significant role in the daily lives of this community and is essential to the local economy. The ferry has been shut down since the beginning of the pandemic, and the land borders have reopened, but the ferry still can't run. So it's shameful to see this Liberal government allow a critical part of this First Nations community to be falling through the cracks. So, Mr. Speaker, my question is simple. When will the minister treat the Walpole Island ferry like the land border crossings?
Hey, great question.
The Honourable Minister. The Honourable Minister. The Honourable Minister of Transportation.
Yeah, I want to thank my colleagues for their applause. It's always an honor to stand in this House of Commons to answer questions. Mr. Speaker, I want to let my colleagues that the health and safety of Canadians is paramount for our government. We have been working with communities on making sure that we apply health and safety standards at the borders. We are requiring travelers to be fully vaccinated. We are working with stakeholders to make sure that...
What's the question?
Let me know when you're ready. I'll continue the session.
Bill, you would have done a better job.
Order. 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 Thank you. The Honourable Minister of Transport, please.
Mr. Speaker, I wish Canadians could hear some of the heckles that are going on here in this House of Commons. They would not be happy that members of Parliament here, they're supposed to be doing their job, are spending their time heckling. But however, Mr. Speaker, I want to tell you and I want to tell my colleagues here that we are doing everything we can to ensure that we protect the health and safety of Canadians, and we are applying borders measures to protect everyone. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Cumbleton, Colchester.
Mr. Speaker, the ArriveCAN app is just not working. I have a constituent, a family doctor, Mr. Speaker, who cannot return to work. He was out of the country and is isolated as appropriate and has multiple negative tests. Their app is telling him he needs to stay home for 14 more days.
Doctor.
This busy family physician, like many other Canadians, is being held hostage by an app that does not work. Canadians need to be able to trust the advice of elected officials. Will this government commit to fixing the broken ArriveCAN app and get Canadians home for the holidays?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think the member will agree with me that this truly is not a hostage situation. Our government is always and will take the necessary steps to protect our borders and to keep Canadians safe. ArriveCAN, for the last year, has played a significant role in reducing introduction and transmission of COVID, and its use is mandatory. In the last few days, the minister has asked for direction for some flexibility rules. Those will be applied. And again, the health and safety of Canadians is our #1 priority.
The Honourable Member for Willowdale.
Mr. Speaker, our government is fully committed to reconciliation with Indigenous peoples. Canadians certainly appreciate that our efforts should start at home and that the government must lead in ensuring that our Indigenous peoples are represented in every sector of economic life. Our government set a 5% target for Indigenous business representation in federal procurement contracts. Can the Honourable Minister of Public Services and Procurement provide members of this House with an update on this critical government commitment? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for Willowdale for that excellent question. Our government is advancing a renewed relationship with Indigenous peoples, which includes creating an environment that truly supports economic growth. We are developing initiatives to increase opportunities for Indigenous businesses to succeed and grow. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, PSPC has awarded 38 contracts to 30 self-identified Indigenous businesses, collectively worth over $126 million. As Minister, I am committed to increasing opportunities for Indigenous businesses from coast to coast to coast. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Esquimalt Saanich-Sooke.
Despite years of work by my community and years of promises from this Liberal government, gay men and trans women are still banned from donating blood in Canada. This unscientific ban serves only to promote homophobia and transphobia and only contributes to blood shortages. Canadian Blood Services has now said they will finally be submitting a recommendation to the Minister of Health this week to lift the ban. Will the Minister commit today to acting quickly when he gets this recommendation and to ordering immediately lifting the ban?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my honourable colleague for raising this issue. I can tell him that we're working with great hope for the submission of the Canadian Blood Service as well as EMA Quebec, and I can assure him that when this comes, we will work quickly on it.
The Honourable Member for Spadina, Fort York.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Tourism and Associate Minister of Finance. My community, Spadina, Fort York, is home to some of the most renowned tourist attractions, from the CN Tower to Toronto Island to the Distillery District and its Christmas market. Spadina, Fort York is also home to West Queen West, which Vogue magazine named as the world's second coolest neighborhood. These attractions bring in millions of tourism dollars annually, and many of our small businesses rely on that traffic. Sadly, however, some have been forced to close due to the pandemic. Would the Minister update the House on what the government is doing to support small business and the recovery of tourism?
The Honourable Minister of Tourism.
Much, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate the Honourable Member's question. Let me just outline just a few of the supports that this government has put in place for entrepreneurs and people in the tourism sector. $100 million to help Destination Canada market us around the world and in our own country. $200 million to support festivals and events. $200 million to support small festivals and large festivals, $500 million for the Tourism Relief Fund, $1 billion in 2021. And if the other side of the House would like to deliver a Christmas present to the tourism sector, they can vote for C2 and see $7.4 billion into our economy.
That's all the time we have for question period for today. Tout le temps que nous avons. Okay, we have a HoC request and a point of order, I believe. We'll start with the point of order, if that's okay, and then we'll go to the unanimous consent, or the request. L'honorable député de Louis Saint-Laurent.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I have 2 points of order that I would like to present, if you agree. First of all, I would like to sincerely thank everyone who works to ensure that we can hold debates here. Unfortunately, regularly, if not every day, there are some interpretation problems. I know that. There's no guilty party here. However, it is very difficult, especially for Francophone MPs. For Francophone MPs, it's difficult to follow debates if all the translation is not available. Therefore, I invite you and the technical team, who's already made significant, extraordinary efforts during the pandemic, to carefully look into this problem because it has been going on for far too long. My second point of order is earlier, the member for Fraser River raised an issue that was answered by the Minister of Public Safety.
To recognize that, yes, when a minister speaks, he speaks on behalf of all the government. But in that specific case, Mr. Speaker, we're talking about agriculture. We're talking about farmers. We're talking about 2,000 family farmers who are directly involved in this issue. So, Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Agriculture was ready to answer, and we wish the next time that we address this specific issue, the actual Minister of Agriculture will address and will answer clearly to our member who are concerned with this issue in British Columbia.
On the first point, we are well aware of the translation and interpretation issue. The table officers are working very hard on it, and we will continue to do so that everyone has translation and interpretation. We take this very seriously. The honourable member is entirely right on that issue. On the second point, I'm not sure if this is a debate or a point of order, but it is not the Speaker who determines who answers the question. It is the government
A point of order being, yes, the honourable member for North Island, Paul Rivers, rising.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And before I do my unanimous consent motion, I just hope, Mr. Speaker, that you will remind members of this House that we no longer follow colonial practices and that Indigenous communities certainly do not belong to Canada. I believe, Mr. Speaker, that if you seek it, you will find unanimous consent for the following motion. That given that the cost of the pandemic recovery should not fall on the shoulders of Canada's poor and vulnerable, the payment of pandemic benefits, including the Canada Emergency Response Benefit and the Canada Recovery Benefit, occurred in extraordinary circumstances, the House call on the government to A, ensure that pandemic benefits not be counted as income to determine eligibility for normal income support programs like the Guaranteed Income Supplement and the Canada Child Benefit. B, guarantee that the onus to deliver any solution to reverse the clawback of income-tested benefits for those who accessed income support benefits falls to government and will not be dependent on Canadians in financial distress navigating an application. And C, recover payments under the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy made to companies that posted substantial profits, especially those that paid dividends to shareholders or bonuses to executives. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
All those opposed to the honourable member moving the motion will please say nay. I'm afraid we don't have unanimous consent. L'honorable député de Alfred Pellan, Marc-Aurèle Fortin, appel au règlement. L'honorable député, vous êtes en sourdine.
Sir, you are on mute.
Oui.
Can you hear me now? Yes.
Vous avez fait appel.
Mr. Speaker, you called attention to wardrobe, whether one is in the House or appearing virtually. Is it possible for everyone to follow the same rules, regardless of their status? Thank you.
L'honorable député, les règlements sont clairs.
The rules are quite clear. A tie and a blazer to take the floor in the House, and that's for men. For women, there is no specific order. Whether one is in the House or appearing virtually, the rules are indeed the same. Thank you.
Tabling of documents. Dépôt de documents, the Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 32.2, and in accordance with the enhanced transparency requirements set out in the amended policy on tabling of treaties in Parliament, I am pleased to notify the House of Commons of the government's intent to initiate negotiations for a Canada-United Kingdom free trade agreement. The Government of Canada intends to commence negotiations by holding a first round of negotiations with the United Kingdom no earlier than 90 days from the date of this notice. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Tabling of documents, the Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to Order 32.2, I have the honour of tabling in both